Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Nalo, and today I figured I'd do a more general guide for you guys, rather than just a news update about Paris or something like that. Now this idea actually kind of got spurred on me by Tex in my Discord server, so quick shout out to him, thanks for the idea. We're going to be talking about how to research investments, what factors you need to take into account, and how to determine if something could be a good investment. We'll get into that after a word from our sponsor, GamerPay. This video is sponsored by GamerPay, the best place to buy and sell CSGO items. So the first and most important thing that you need to know about GamerPay right now is that they actually have 0% fees using the GamerPay wallet, which means you can trade your items out on GamerPay completely for free. Another super cool feature of GamerPay that I absolutely love is the ability to get a 3D shop, which allows buyers to check out all of the items that you're selling on GamerPay in an environment which lets you kind of view what the item would look like in game. GamerPay also has a lot of settings to improve your experience. For example, you can compare items on GamerPay to their buff prices, which I really like. When you're checking out an item, you can see a full breakdown of all of the qualities of the item and the seller, and you can even get some chances to win some items just by completing some tasks on the website. It's really easy to buy and withdraw items from GamerPay. Just find the item you want, do the trade offer, and then boom, the item is in your inventory, ready for you to go use and flex on your silver teammates. But besides all those really cool features, you should definitely be using GamerPay right now just because of their fee structure alone. 0% fees for buyers and sellers using the GamerPay wallet is a great deal and puts GamerPay ahead of so many other markets. Speaking of sellers, there's a myriad of great features for you as well. For example, you can make the items that you have listed follow the buff price of the items so you don't have to monitor them as much. You can also view the analytics of certain items to see how they're performing. So with all these great features and more, it's really a no-brainer. You can visit GamerPay using my link in the description below. Alright guys, to start off this video, I figured it would be kind of smart to go through an example flow of what you would do in order to research a specific investment. So the first thing that I would personally do is I would go and look at some indexes. eSportFire has a great set of indexes for the CS market, and essentially what indexes are is they give you this overall concept of how the market is doing for either a specific part of the market, like for example Paris, or just the overall market. And I would start by looking at indexes because they would tell you if the market is sort of in a general uptrend or a downtrend, and that can give you a solid grasp on if it's a good time to actually invest in the first place. For example, if the market looks like it's peaking, then you probably just want to wait to invest. But if the market looks like it's more on a downtrend, then it could be a better time to buy in. So that's where I would start. Next, if you've gone ahead and determined that it is a good time to invest in the market, then I would head over to CSGO Stash. So the reason that I personally like CSGO Stash is because it lets you parse a whole lot of information in a quick and efficient way. You can look at specific groups of CSGO items, or you can just look at one specific item as well. For skins, it's got great breakdowns like the float caps and the paint finishes and things like that, and you can quickly and easily access the Steam Market link for any of the items just by going to them. So I really do like CSGO Stash, and I use it a lot personally. But since it allows you to sort of take in a large amount of information at once, it can give you the ability to start to pick out certain investment areas pretty quickly. So just for this flow, we'll go for the MP9 Army Sheen. Now the third step I would take is I would go ahead and make some comparisons within that specific group. So for example, with the MP9 Army Sheen, I would compare it to other consumer grades that are also from the Control collection because they have a lot of the same function that the MP9 Army Sheen does, and I would just use these comparisons to make sure that I'm investing in the best possible consumer grade and making sure that I'm not investing in one that potentially has a better float cap, for example. Sometimes these little micro comparisons might not be necessary, but for skins they usually are. Next up, and probably the most important thing I would do, is finding similar items. So for the MP9 Army Sheen, for example, I would look at other consumer grades that also came out around the same time that the Control collection came out. This gives you an idea of how the collection that you're looking at is performing compared to the other collections, and it can also give you a better overall benchmark of how the price movement of those items is going. Comparing and analyzing these price histories is probably one of the most important things you can do in determining an investment. Looking at indexes as well as price histories can give you a really good idea of how an item moves with the market, and that can help you to sort of get a better grasp of how the future performance of the item might go. And obviously with investing, you're very interested in the future performance of an item. One thing you can potentially do at this stage is make an ROI comparison chart. A smaller YouTuber named Germ actually recently made a video doing this sort of thing, and although he uses end of sale prices in this video, and I think using all-time low prices is probably a little bit better, it's still a pretty good way to get some hard data for items. With CS investing, since it's so demand-based, there's not really a lot of room for really hard data and technical analysis and things like that, so looking at the overall ROI of items and comparing them is one of the best pieces of data you can actually get. So once you've done all these comparisons of similar items and looked at the ROI of them, the next thing that I would do is look at the price history of your chosen item. Like I said before, this just gives you a better idea of some data on the item, and can potentially help you determine how the item will perform in the future. And finally, the last thing that I would do before actually buying into the item would be heading over to Discord, Twitter, or just really any investing forums, and potentially trying to start a discussion about the item or seeing if potentially other people are talking about it. Like I said, the CS market is extremely demand focused, so getting a good idea of what people think about certain items is really, really important because demand will drive the market up. My Discord community, for example, is a really good place to go. People are always talking about different investments and discussing what they're buying into, so it's a good place to go to bounce some ideas off of each other. As always, you're also free to DM me on Discord or Twitter, and as long as your question is logical and I have time to answer it, I will answer it completely for free. You have nothing to lose. So anyway, that's sort of just an example flow. There are some other things you can do here and there, of course, as well in more niche cases, but that's generally the flow I would go with to kind of pinpoint certain items and figure out if they're good or not. Now, while this flow will give you a good generic idea, there are also some other things that I would compare and contrast. Like, for example, I would try to figure out how the item is performing on third-party marketplaces, especially Buff. If you don't have access to Buff, you can always just ask someone to show you a screenshot of the price trend of the item on Buff. Buff is also a fantastic place to go to buy investments in general, and I would actually also recommend the sponsor of this video, GamerPay. I've personally been able to purchase items on GamerPay that were actually cheaper than Buff, so I'd recommend checking that out too. So I guess the next thing to go over would be some deterministic qualities of items that make them good investments. So for starters, one of the most important qualities of an item is its supply cap. This is basically a measure of how much of an item can be created as time goes on. So for example, USP Orions have sort of a pseudo cap on their supply because you can't obtain them from case unboxings anymore, you can only get them from trade-ups. This limits the amount of USP Orions that can exist a lot more than items that are actually still in the Huntsman case. But a supply cap can also be completely binding as well, where no new supply of an item can be created. So for example, consumer grades from Operation Collections that are no longer in the in-game stores, since you can no longer get the items from the in-game store, and since it's also impossible to create consumer grades via trade-ups, the amount that we have of them right now is the amount that we will have for them forever. It's completely capped off. Another one is Stockholm sticker capsules, for example. Those are also completely supply capped. No matter what, we can't create more of them because you can't buy them from the in-game store. So in a general sense, the closer an item is to a full-on supply cap, the better the item will generally perform. However, do keep in mind that rarity doesn't always determine success. Even if an item has low supply but it has no demand, the item won't move very much at all. So the next question that you probably have is, how do you determine demand? And unfortunately, demand is a little bit more intangible, but I'll try to give you a basic idea of how it works. So firstly, there are two types of demand. The first is natural demand that the average consumer has for an item, and the second is investor demand, which is basically just a measure of how enticing an item looks as an investment to a random investor. A good way to demonstrate this difference in demand is by looking at application rates of certain stickers. Many people have the misconception that a high application rate automatically means the sticker will perform well, and while at first glance there is some logic to that statement, it's unfortunately not true. For example, the Phase and Navi Hollows from Antwerp have extremely high application rates. In fact, they have the highest application rates of all team stickers in Antwerp. The Cloud9 Hollow from the same capsule has a very middling application rate. Despite this, the Cloud9 Hollow is vastly more successful than the Phase and Navi Hollows. Now, the reason for this is because investors aren't applying their stickers. If an investor is investing in a sticker, it makes no sense for them to apply the sticker to an item, so application rate essentially doesn't take into account investor demand whatsoever, but it can give you an okay idea of how generic consumer demand is going for that specific sticker. However, generally speaking, investor demand is more important. Generally speaking, though, investors are going for items that look really, really good and look like an average person would really like to own one. So basically, items that look really cool or look like they have a lot of use or have a binding supply cap are all pretty enticing to investors. Or you could always go check out what Fano is manipulating on his Twitter account. Alright, just a joke. Anyway, I think that's going to actually take us to the end of this video. As always, if you have more questions, don't be afraid to hit me up on Discord or Twitter. I'll answer all your questions completely for free as long as I have time. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for the best CS investment tips anywhere else on YouTube. Like the video if you enjoyed it, it would help me massively, and it costs you absolutely nothing. And if you want to go ahead and support the channel, use the GamerPay link in the description below. If you spend €50 on GamerPay with my link, we both get a bonus €5. See you next time, guys. Peace.